Okay, we have resumed our preliminary hearing calendar for this morning. We have one case that's scheduled for a hearing. I'm officially calling, 1 minute, please. The state of Georgia versus Deshaun Michael McDade. Mr. McDade is appearing via via Zoom at the Clayton County Jail. We also have Mr. McDade's attorney, Attorney Jerick Rogers, who will be representing him in the hearing. I'm going to call the charge. I'm going to identify the charge that's on the record, and then we'll proceed forward with the hearing. The first charge we have is improper erratic lane change, warrant number 2023 WA06246. Second charge, reckless driving, warrant number 2023 WA06247. Third charge, failure to signal before turning or stopping, warrant number 2023 WA06248. We have a possession of firearm by a felon charge, warrant number 2023 WA06249. There's a DUI alcohol less safe charge, warrant number 2023 WA06250. Child endangerment by DUI, warrant number 2023 WA06251. There's a charge of driving with a suspended or revoked license, warrant number 2023 WA06252. And then final charge of possession of a firearm, warrant number 2023 WA06253. Those are the charges pending against the defendant, Deshaun Michael McDade. 88 Freeman will be representing the state. Are you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, please proceed forward.
Thank you. The state calls Deputy Clark. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony about provide in the matter of state of Georgia versus Deshaun McDade will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
My name is Deputy Sheriff Rayshawn Clark, employed by the Clayton County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you worked with the Clayton County Sheriff's Office?
3 months.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. Say it again.
Sorry, 4 months now.
And Deputy Clark, do you have any previous law enforcement experience?
Yes.
And please tell us what that is.
Working for the Fulton County Sheriff's Office as a deputy sheriff, a detention officer, the Martin Police Department as a dispatcher, Atlanta Public Schools police officer as dispatcher.
So in total, how much law enforcement experience do you have?
About 4 years.
Deputy, were you working with the Clayton County Sheriff's Office on March 31st of 2023?
I was.
And on that particular day, as you were traveling on 75 southbound, did you observe a vehicle that you later found to be driven by Deshaun McDade?
Yes.
Okay. What type of vehicle was this?
It was a orange and colored Dodge Charger.
What drew your attention to this orange Dodge Charger?
It was driving with the passenger side door open and the driver's side door fully open, and it was making very erratic lane changes, not using its turn signal when it made those lane changes, and it's running up on the back of other vehicles, almost causing accidents.
When you observed this, Deputy, what did you do?
I then tended to catch up to the vehicle and activate my emergency equipment to pull the vehicle over at a safe location.
Were you able to pull the vehicle over?
I was.
Where did you end up pulling the vehicle over?
In front of the Little Giants grocery store.
Who all was in the vehicle?
Mr. McDade, a female passenger, 2 little kids, and a pit bull.
And what, I'm sorry, the last bit?
A pit bull.
Were the children properly restrained?
They were not.
Just so we're clear, they were not in car seats?
They were not.
Did they have the regular seatbelt strap around them?
It did not.
Do you recall the ages of the children?
I was not able to get the ages of the kids.
Was there any doubt in your mind that these children were under the age of 18?
Yeah, I would object. It's irrelevant what he thinks about it. Either he has factual information or he doesn't, so I would object to relevance.
I'm gonna overrule that.
Thank you. Deputy Clerk, you may answer.
The two kids were under the age of 18. They had to be no more than 6 or 7 years old.
Thank you. Were they seated in the back of the vehicle?
They were.
When you approached the vehicle, did you observe anything regarding Mr. McDade?
As it relates to,
I'm sorry.
as it relates to,
Well, when you approached Mr. McDade, tell us what you did.
Mr. Madej actually tried on multiple occasions to get out the vehicle before I exited my patrol vehicle. I then went and made contact with Mr. McDade and had him come to the front of my vehicle, where I then asked him for his ID, and I began to talk with him, trying to identify him. I asked him if he had any weapons on him. He said no. I then conducted a pat search of him, and that's where I found a weapon on him. I asked him where he was going and why he was driving in a very erratic manner. He just said he was trying to get home. He didn't really say much after that. While talking with him, I smelled odor of alcoholic beverage coming from his person. And I noticed that while talking with him, he was giving very emotional responses, and his attitude changed very often while talking with him.
Deputy Clark, the weapon that you found on Mr. McDade's person, where did you locate it?
I believe I located it in his right pocket, his right front pocket.
Do you recall what type of firearm this was?
It was a 9mm size CPX-2.
Deputy, you indicated that you detected an odor of alcohol from Mr. McDade. From your law enforcement experience, have you received any type of training regarding detecting alcohol usage on drivers?
I have not.
And in your 4 years of experience in law enforcement, have you had occasion to make arrests for people for using alcohol while driving?
I have not.
Now, you took out a warrant for driving under the influence, is that correct?
That's correct.
Please tell us what made you end up taking that warrant out.
Based on the detection of the smell of the alcoholic beverage coming from persons, his behavior, and his eyes being red, glassy, and not him, he wasn't really paying attention to what was going on or paying attention to the conversation that we were having during my interview with him. I then decided to charge him with DUI less safe.
Deputy, did you administer any type of DUI test on Mr. McDade?
I did not.
Did you administer any type of test to determine how much alcohol Mr. McDade may have consumed?
I did not.
When you indicate that Mr. McDade's eyes were glassy, tell us what you mean by that.
His eyes were red, bloodshot red, and glassy, meaning I could see the reflection, a lot of reflection coming from his eyes.
Did you ask Mr. McDade any questions regarding if he had used any alcohol?
Not at that time.
Was there a later time when you asked Mr. McDade any questions regarding alcohol?
No, ma'am.
While you were talking to Mr. McDade, did you have occasion to run his criminal history?
I did.
What anything did you learn regarding his criminal history?
I learned that he was he had a revoked license. Also learned that he had warrants out of Barnesville PD and Gwinnett County PD, and that he was convicted for burglary in DeKalb County.
Now, Deputy, you took out you charged Mr. McDade twice for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon or first offender. Did you locate a second firearm?
Yes, the second firearm was located inside the vehicle and in the driver's seat floorboard area, which I reasonably believe would have been in his reach.
The passenger that was in the car, was this a male or a female?
It's a female.
Did she make any statements regarding the handgun?
After he was detained and getting ready to be transported to the Clayton County Jail, she came to my window and said that both firearms belonged to her and that she wanted it back.
And just so we're clear, the first firearm was located on Mr. McDade's person, is that right?
That's correct.
The second firearm that you located was under the driver's seat where Mr. McDade was driving, is that correct?
That's correct.
You also charged Mr. McDade with a failure to signal before turning. Was that on 75?
That's correct.
Did all of this happen in Clayton County?
It did.
Deputy, one more thing. I know you indicated that you had not received any special type of training regarding DUIs, but you gave some indicators as to why you charged Mr. McDade with driving under the influence. How did you learn of those indicators regarding driving under the influence?
From my basic law enforcement mandate class.
In that mandate class, what types of things did you all discuss regarding driving under the influence?
Indicators and things to look for when possibly charging with driving under the influence.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Lieutenant Rogers, your witness.
Thank you. Deputy Clark, so the first time you said that you see the vehicle is on the highway, is that correct?
That's correct.
And number one, I guess, are you on the move or are you stationary at the time you see the vehicle?
At that time, I was moving.
And about how far apart are you from the target vehicle?
About 2 lanes over.
And are y'all, when you say 2 lanes over, y'all side by side?
No, he was actually in front of me, and I was 2 lanes over behind him.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it starts off on 75, but the stop actually occurs on Terra Boulevard or off Terra Boulevard.
That's correct.
And so approximately how far do you all travel on 75 South? Once he's come to your attention, that is.
We travel probably about less than half a mile.
And is your car, does it have dash camera?
It does not.
And do you have, is there any sort of, well, do you have any sort of recording of any of the driving that's been discussed?
Do I have any recordings?
Right. Do you have any recording, any video recording?
I do not.
And do you have any witnesses to the driving that you discussed?
I do.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite catch the end of it. They say you do or do not.
I do.
Okay. And who are the witnesses?
Cobb County Police Officer. Her name is Officer Jefferson.
And the Cobb County Police Officer, when you say that they're a witness, do they have some sort of video or anything like that?
She does not.
How did the Cobb County officer come to be involved?
The Cobb County officer was behind me on the expressway, and she saw me trying to attempt to stop the vehicle. And before the vehicle came to a complete stop, she kept riding behind me till the vehicle came to a complete stop. And then when I exited my vehicle, she exited her vehicle with me as well.
But to your knowledge, I want to make sure I didn't ask the question poorly or anything. Do you know whether or not that officer has video?
I do. She just said that she does not.
And other than the Cobb County officer, are there any other witnesses to your knowledge?
I do not.
And then once you make contact with the vehicle and Mr. McDade is removed from the vehicle, if I'm not mistaken, well, let me ask, where are you when Mr. McDade eventually is removed from the vehicle?
Where was I?
Yeah, were you at the door? Where are you at when he gets out of his vehicle?
I was at his door.
And what time of day is this?
It's in the evening. It was around 7 o'clock.
You said around 7 o'clock.
Yes.
And this handgun, I say, that was found in a floorboard. Do you see that handgun in the floorboard when Mr. McDade gets out the vehicle at that point?
I did not notice it because I was not that close up on Mr. McDade at the time that he exited the vehicle.
You're saying you're at the door, but you can't see the floorboard?
That's correct. The gun did not appear to me at that time.
Okay, yeah, I want to make sure you understand my question. You were positioned at the door, and you see the floorboard when you're at the door of the vehicle.
And I did not see the gun at that time.
Oh, no, I want to make sure. What do you think my question is, Deputy?
Did I see the gun when I was standing at the door?
Yeah, I'm good.
Right, that's not my question.
Okay. So Attorney Rogers, why don't you ask the question that you would like him to answer?
Deputy, when you're positioned at the door, from that position, can you see the floorboard?
I could.
At that time, you did not see a firearm, correct? And the person who we've discussed that was also present in the vehicle, the adult that we talked about, that person is the owner of the vehicle, is that correct?
Yes.
And I just want to make sure again, because it kind of cut off. They said yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Owner.
And that person, the owner of the vehicle, is also the person that tells you they own the firearms. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, if I got one moment, I think I may. Let me ask you this. I know you mentioned charging him with driving on a either suspended or revoked license, either way. Correct me if I'm wrong. Your report notes that there is no serve date. Is that correct?
That's correct.
No further questions at this time.
Okay, I do have just a couple of questions. Officer, now according to the warrant, you indicated that the suspect had, you said was his, in terms of the DUI charge, you said that his eyes were glassy, slur of speech, and very dramatic emotional changes. Can you expound upon that at all in terms of what you meant in your
Yes.
warrant?
Yes. So while talking with him, as I stated earlier, Your Honor, his tone would change. One moment he would be happy, one moment he would be sad. He would talk about he was talking about when he had just picked up his kids from Six Flags and they had a good time. And then all of a sudden he would just become very upset. That's where I got the emotional from. The glassy eyes. I noticed that when talking with him, as well as the odor of alcoholic beverage coming from his breath.
Okay. And can you tell me, was the Cobb County officer present when you were questioning the suspect at all?
She was present, but she was not in the area. She was talking to the passenger at that time at the car.
Okay, and I guess did she do a report if she spoke with the passenger?
I'm not sure if she did a report. I know
Okay.
she was in jurisdiction.
How long did she remain on the scene?
Until another sheriff's office unit arrived on scene.
Okay, so would that be 10 minutes?
Probably about 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes, okay. And with respect to the firearm that was found on the floorboard in plain view, did you ask the suspect if he owned that gun?
I did not.
Okay, and why not?
Because I didn't have. I did not Mirandize him at that time.
Okay, well, when did you Mirandize him?
Right before I started questioning him about the DUI. I'm sorry, not the DUI, about the kids.
Okay. No further questions. 88 Firm, do you have any questions in response to my questions?
No additional questions, Judge.
Okay, Attorney Rogers, do you have any questions in response to my questions?
Yes, ma'am. Just to clarify, if correct me if I misunderstood. So I think you asked him if he asked Mr. McDade whether or not he owned the firearms. Deputy, I just want to make sure when the owner of the vehicle makes the statements about the firearms, she's saying she owns both of them. Is that correct?
That's correct. And she made that statement once he was already in custody. She came to my window and stated that both of those firearms belonged to her and that she wanted them back.
Okay. And let me ask you this. So you said he was already in custody, so it's not as if he had a chance to tell her to say that. She came over and said that on her own.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. ADA Freeman, do you have any other witnesses?
No additional witnesses, Your Honor, the state rests.
Okay. Any witnesses for the defense, Attorney Rogers?
No, man, just an argument, John.
Okay. Okay,
State
88
is
Freeman.
opening. State
Okay.
waives opening.
Attorney Rogers.
All right. Yeah, I guess I'll start with at least what was probably one of the easier ones to get rid of is the suspended license or driving on suspended or revoked license charge. I also testified that there was no serve date shown. And the case of Sledge v. State states that when we talk about driving with a suspended license, section 4560, that is, they must show that the accused was driving, that the license was suspended, and that the accused had received actual or legal notice of the suspension. There's no such assertion here, so that's that the charge related to driving on a suspended or revoked license be dismissed for lack of probable cause. Additionally, as it relates to the child endangerment by DUI, a couple of things I'll say. Number one, the deputy, he stated that the children were under 18, which is not actually the requirement. The requirements are that to be under 14, not 18. Additionally, at this point, there's been no date of birth given. He spoke on an age, but he didn't say, what the basis of that age was. There was no discussion about heights, weights. He didn't have a date of birth. We haven't even heard names of these children. So that's that charge be dismissed for lack of probable cause on those bases. As it relates to the improper or erratic lane change, there have been a lot of assertions that were just kind of made, but none of them were really detailed. There was improper erratic lane changes being asserted, but again, it's not really clear what is the basis of that. Driving with doors open doesn't make a lane change improper. It doesn't really support any of these. That's the only really specific allegation that's been made. The officer didn't claim that he paced the speed or anything like that. He didn't have any witnesses saying that, that they thought they were about to be struck. Doesn't even have really any statement from the Cobb County officer other than just that she was there present and that she, assisted with the pullover. So at this point, I don't know really I'm not even sure what I would be arguing against other than just that this person is driving at some speed on the highway and this deputy decided to pull him over. So I just want to clear when he says failure to signal before turning or stopping, he hadn't identified like what turn, what stop that he failed to signal before. He didn't mention any other vehicles or anything like that that would have made it improper. As it relates to possession of firearm by a felon and first offender probation, I would point out that to the extent that he alleges that Mr. McDade is physically in possession of one firearm, I would consider that would at least hold up for a possession argument. As it relates to the one that was in the floorboard, though, I would take issue with that because this is a gun that is not found on his person. It's found in a vehicle that he does not own. The owner is there. The owner has established that they are both her firearms. The deputy doesn't say he saw it when he got Mr. McDade out the car. There's nothing that I'm aware of that would have prevented him from seeing this firearm laying in the floorboard if that's where it was when he got him out. So I would ask that at least the second charge of possession of firearm by a felon be dismissed for lack of probable cause. Merely being near it, the charge is not proximity to a firearm by a felon as possession. Those are two different things. As it relates to the DUI charges, I would also take issue. I spoke on the child endangerment aspect as it relates to the child part, but as it relates to the DUI aspect and the DUI less safe, I'll go ahead and address both of those. Glassy eyes, he's never seen, at least as far as I know, there's no testimony that he's ever seen Mr. McDade before, so he doesn't know Mr. McDade looks like this all the time. There's no discussion of him swaying. He's talking about his emotional demeanor, but again, he doesn't know Mr. McDade to say that Mr. McDade is not always like that. Some people are more animated and emotional than others. So that to say that his personality or his way of expressing himself is the basis to charge him with DUI, that kind of flies in the face of freedom of expression. Additionally, merely having alcohol in your breath is not a DUI. Otherwise, it would be any consumption of alcohol would render you DUI, and that's not the law. There's no breathalyzer being alleged. There's no field sobriety test. There's no blood alcohol content being offered at all. So for all those reasons, John, I would say that there's not enough of a basis. Somebody, their eyes being glassy that you've never seen before, if that's all it takes, or having some beer, or whatever the case may be, if that was all it took, then we wouldn't need to really do the rest of the law. It would just be, did you have something to drink? Yes or no, game over. So for all those reasons, Your Honor, that there's been insufficient basis to establish that he was driving under the influence of alcohol, to the extent that it rendered him less safe. There's no talk about him being unsteady on his feet or lacking any kind of control or anything like that. And the child endangerment by DUI should also fall for the same reason. So I would ask that those charges all be dismissed for lack of probable cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Rogers. ADA Freeman.
Thank you, Your Honor. We are asking that all of these charges be bound over to Superior Court. I'm just going to go down the list as to how they are listed on the calendar. We heard the testimony regarding the improper or erratic lane change and the reckless driving and the failure to signal. Deputy Clark indicated that Mr. McDade was driving this orange Dodge Charger going down 75 South with the doors open. That's, certainly falls within the erratic and reckless driving with children seated in the back. Deputy Clark did indicate that the children, he believed, were no more than 6 years old. They weren't in a child restraint seat. They weren't even strapped in with just a regular seat belt. So definitely we believe that the child endangerment has been met on the possession of a firearm. So both of the weapons, so starting with the first one, it was found on Mr. McDade's person. The second firearm, I believe Deputy Clark testified that he believed it was certainly within Mr. McDade's reach. It was under the driver's seat. Mr. McDade was the individual driving the vehicle. He doesn't have to be the owner of either gun, but the fact that he was a convicted felon, as Deputy Clark testified to, he was not supposed to be in possession of any type of firearm. The DUI, Judge Deputy Clark indicated that from his basic mandate class that he has been instructed on what indicators to look for regarding someone driving under the influence. When you look at how Mr. McDade was driving in this Dodge Charger, the emotional state that Deputy Clark testified that Mr. McDade was in, the glassy eyes as well. We believe that that is more than enough to establish at this stage the DUI, alcohol less safe. The driving under suspension or revocation, Judge, for probable cause, we believe that it's certainly sufficient that Deputy Clark indicated when he ran Mr. McDade's criminal history, it did indicate that he had a suspended license. He did testify to that he did not know of a serve date, but he did testify that he saw that his license had been suspended. So for all of these reasons, Judge, we're asking that these charges be bound over to Superior Court.
Okay, thank you, A.D. Freeman. In light of the evidence here, also with the charges that I do find sufficient probable cause to bound over, specifically the improper erratic lane change, the reckless driving, the failure to signal before turning or stopping, the possession of a firearm by a felon, as well as the DUI, alcohol less safe, and the child endangerment by DUI. However, I do not find sufficient probable cause to bound over specifically warrant number 2023 WA06252, where he was charged with driving with a suspended or revoked license. I do agree with Attorney Rogers on that charge, as well as I do not find sufficient probable cause to bind over the second charge for possession of a firearm by a felon, warrant number 2023 WA06253. So I will be dismissing the last two charges, and then the remaining ones will be bound over. That will be the order of the court today, and I want to thank both parties for their presentation of their case.
Thank you, Judge. And may Deputy Clark be excused.
Yes.
Thank you, Deputy. Have a good one.
Okay, I believe that will conclude the first appearance calendar for this morning. So that's great. This morning, is that correct?
That's correct, Judge.
Okay, and I don't know if you guys have looked at the calendar for Wednesday. We do have a voluminous calendar thus far. So I'm hoping that we can get some things knocked off the calendar before Wednesday. Otherwise, please prepare for probably an afternoon schedule.
All right, we're working on it, Judge. We're still on live also, Your Honor.
Yes.